do this.
I could, so much wailing and gnashing of teeth, so much panic, so much fear, so much horror, so much danger. The infrastructure weak as come collapsing down. Nothing can happen. Right. Okay. First of all, I would like to say to everyone, please stay calm and carry on. Yes. In the name of the Queen, Dr. Jill Biden, I suppose. Please remain calm. Keep calm and chill out. Isn't that the same thing, though? It kind of is.
I think so.
Yeah. You graduated from the University of Redundancy with a degree in redundancy. There's a lot of news. Obviously this is going to carry on. Let me make something abundantly clear to everybody who's the wailing and the gnashing and the thing of the teeth. I personally believe, this is my personal belief, that the infrastructure bill and the recon bill, which is what I'm calling it, is going to pass. Both of them are going to pass. The second bill will be closer to 1.5 to 1.7. A nice, neat 3, somewhere in the zone of that, right? And just prep yourself for that reality, because it'll get wheedled down, because there was fat in it to start with this in mind. The lesson that Biden was trying to teach Obama while he was in office and was, was like, as a former member of the Senate, was screaming to everybody in the White House, like, trust me, over ask, because they will under deliver. And that was one of the complaints that a lot of people had about the Obama administration, was that they felt like they asked for what they needed and got half of that instead of asking for what they wanted and got what they needed. And the idea is you ask for everything you want and you get what you need. And some of what you want if you ask hard enough. That's the art of the deal. Like, if you don't want to write a book, but you want it to be a bestseller, which are, by the way, parallel tracks. If I write a book, it won't be. But there was a point where Biden was kind of both saying this not only about the ACA and other things, but he was talking about Afghanistan in the same way. We're 6 years ago. He's saying they are presenting you with this impossible choice. You have to stay here forever. And nobody believes it. Nobody wants it. And the American people don't want it. We're not turning Afghanistan into the 51st state. It's not going to happen. So we need to just start getting out. And there was this vacillation. And the generals were all like, all we need about 2,500 guys there. And then we need another 4,000 after that. And then 3 months, 5 months, 10 months. And that's how we stayed in for 20 years. And the same thing is kind of true in these deals, is that there's a lot of like, we're watching this. The sausage factory is getting a colonoscopy this week. You are seeing the colonoscopy of the sausage making. You know what I mean? Think of a more apt description of this week's legislative flailing. So, Cheryl P in our chat is asking 1.7 trillion for, and oh my gosh, Hal Vickery, thank you for the super chat. Manchin's got a mansion, Cinema's got a cinema, Vicky's got a Vickery. Vickery's got a Vickery. That's true. And we'll talk a bit about Manchin. It looks like if anyone is to craft a version of things that will get passed through the reconciliation process, Manchin's going to barter that deal with Cinema essentially. And if she's not a full no, which is a strong possibility, by the way, kids, there may be a point where she has nothing to lose. She may be so in bed with her lobbyists in Arizona, or such in a sort of a rogue state that used to have McCain as a senator, that she kind of doesn't care. And she's, in some places she's pulling ahead of Kelly because of this. There's a lot of reasons why it's not an automatic sell, or where the arm twisting won't work, right? And so we'll talk about a little bit of that today. But ultimately, a version of both will pass. That's going to happen. And I've said this before, but the infrastructure bill, I know you've got a favorite part of the infrastructure bill, Johnny, right? What's your favorite part?
I mean,
what's your hit track?
I've been kind of hovering around the, well, you know what? Actually, my favorite part of the infrastructure bill is getting Wi-Fi to the rubes.
Yes, right. Broadband for the flyover states. The very people who are being denied their rights and are being trampled on.
Like Wi-Fi to the rubes?
And yeah, I don't know. It kind of does work. It does. I don't know that it's Wi-Fi though. I think they might have some hard wiring going on. unless we're going to just do like hovering satellites, and these people have like the Wi-Fi drones that they have around disaster areas, and so like
Oh yeah,
that won't make them any more paranoid than they already are. Great,
yeah.
that's a great
Let
plan.
up there. Don't worry
But
about it.
yeah, the broadband thing is absolutely the I said is the selling point. So much so that there are some people pretending that it's in the bigger bill, and it's not. It's in the smaller bill. It's in the 1.5 trillion, which might be the same price bill by the time we're done. Just for the record, it might be 1515, and that will pass, by the way. And but what you need to know about all of these things is that in the first bill, there's a $50 billion seed for an infrastructure bank, and
Oh,
that's
right. You
that.
love the bank.
I love the infrastructure bank. That's game set match because cities can get bonds out of that infrastructure. Can basically bond against that infrastructure bank to borrow money at nearly zero interest to pay for city projects, roads, bridges, repair, ongoing maintenance, which is part of the problem. Some of our bridges, the more dangerous ones, the reasons why they've started to like get shaky and fall apart, or in the case of the one in Minneapolis that fell and all that stuff, was because they didn't have enough money allocated, or they were spending it elsewhere on maintenance for their infrastructure. And so having this
Yeah.
as a constant, like, okay, our engineers say this is a real problem because of that last storm. We don't have there's not going to be emergency funds for this, so we're going to do a bond and get some money from the infrastructure bank, and we'll pay for it that way. And the city, it won't cost us any interest. It'll just roll into our a soft part of our budget that can be ongoing, because infrastructure is really expensive for most cities. I mean, it's cracked roads and bridges and foundations of structures that run the government,
And it's perpetual.
It's ongoing and always necessary. So that and it's way overdue, absolutely. And that one thing alone is worth somewhere in the order of about $5 trillion worth of infrastructure investment over the next 35 years, 40 years, because it will be a constant rotating in money back in, taking money out, paying it off, taking it out. But it will pay for that stuff where there was no mechanism before. And that's amazing. So that's why I white knuckle the passing of the first bill. The second bill is social programs. I would more align with something like the ACA. Crucial, important, but you can refine and work on it for a couple of months because we've gone this long without it. We not only want it to work, we want it to be stable and pay for itself and maintain itself over time, so that at some point these programs don't get gutted in the next generation by a tax cut when and if somebody else takes over. Somebody in the chat room saying we need high-speed rail. Gonzo. Oh, hey, it's Gonzo. Yes and no. You need parallel tracks of conventional rail and high-speed rail. You need commuter high-speed rail, and you need, in parallel, to pay for, to balance the debt in laying track and stuff, you need freight and the environmental impact, by the way, that you lessen by having trains instead of trucks, for example. And you know who's finding that out right now, Johnny Million?
No.
China. China in 2008 went all in on high-speed rail. Like that was,
and something go horribly wrong.
They've had a couple of derails that were really bad, but what really went wrong is far more boring. The rail system in all of China is on the edge of a debt collapse, along with the Evergrande story that's going on there, and the China Rising. I hope you're pouring a beverage and not doing like Burt Reynolds in it wasn't The End, Man Who Loved Women. I don't know. He had to have they wouldn't let you at this EST conference. They wouldn't let you go to the bathroom ever. So he took a whiskey flask and put a catheter on himself, and in the middle of it you could hear oh god, I love that movie. Anyway, so Burt Reynolds, we miss you. But so they bet all in on high-speed rail because it's sexy, and it's and the international community was like oohing and eyeing, but they let their regular transport trains sort of wither on the vine, and then once the consumer contact fell, or the consumer content as far as tickets and whatnot fell, it wasn't paying for what little transport rail they had left. And the transport rail was needed to keep the dirty diesel trucks off the road. And so they're in a bind about this entirely right now, which is really ugly. I mean, that in and of itself, like during the Trump administration, we were like this would have capsized any other president. This one thing, but the fact is that if the followers of Trump were so, such like cult like maniacs that they would just let anything slide. Anybody else, even Nixon, they're like his
yes, that's evident.
Yes. So in China, they're kind of in the same pickle right now with both the Evergrande situation, which if you're not familiar, folks, has a lot to do with real estate in the country. They own somewhere in the order of 2 to 7% of the real estate in China, this company, and they're in debt $300 billion. China's ordered them to restructure their debt and ordered the banks to help them, but this is Hank Paulson flop sweat time in 2008. Remember when Hank Paulson came out and he was like, you could tell he was shaking and just sweaty and going, that's fine. That's where they are.
Oh, about everything about to pop.
Yes, it's the same thing. And so, we have a lot of fascinating news to talk about, but we have to take a break. And I want to talk about when we first come back. I think the funniest story of the week, at the very least, is that it turns out that Grandpa Giuliani got all of his crazy ideas from Facebook. Who woulda thunk it? We'll be back right after this. This is the House Sparks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, live streaming at infotainmentwars.com.